morning, everybody. So continuing on the long, impressive list of speakers that we've had this morning, I'm about to introduce somebody else to you who is really moving the open data transformation effort forward across government. You know, it's something that we at MorganFranklin care deeply about, and it's a priority for us, so I'm very honored to be able to introduce to you Margie Graves, who I'll introduce in a second, who's going to be speaking to us about modernizing government management through data. Bear with me while I read her bio to you because it's very long and impressive and I want to make sure I get it right. Margie Graves is acting federal CIO for the Office of the Federal Chief Information Officer at the White House Office of Management and Budget. The Office of the Federal CIO drives value in federal IT, driving world-class digital services, protecting federal IT assets and information, delivering world-class digital services, and developing the next generation IT workforce. In her role, Margie works to improve the way government delivers results and technology services to the public. Previously, Margie served as the Deputy CIO at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, where she had oversight of an IT portfolio of $5.4 billion in programs and managed the operations of the Office of the CIO. She's held positions including the Executive Director of the Enterprise Business Management Office within DHS, and served as the Deputy Program Manager for the Border and Transportation Security IT Integration Program. Margie augments her public sector responsibilities with private sector experience, where she held executive-level positions and performed strategic-level consulting engagements for clients in the areas of systems engineering, process re-engineering, strategic planning, financial management, and capital planning. She holds an MBA from the University of Virginia Darden School of Business and a BS in chemistry from the University of Virginia. Please welcome me in joining Margie Graves.
Good morning. So thank you, Frank, for that nice introduction. It's my pleasure to be with you here today. Sorry, short girl here. Trying to turn the microphone so you can actually hear me. I'm here today to primarily reaffirm OMB's commitment to open data and publishing useful data sets, especially in the context of supporting more efficient mission support and service delivery. So OMB does that support in three ways. We have the power to provide technical assistance to legislation and to Congress. We have the promulgate policy and guidance from that legislation to help agencies implement and to help us interact with industry as we do so. And we also have the power to convene and bring together groups like this group today to lift up the successes and to provide the lessons learned and to maintain the momentum and increase the enthusiasm. So we're building on the good work that's been done to date, both in the public and private sector. And open data is not just a transparency exercise, it's really integral to the management of the federal government itself, that data-driven decision-making that we're all talking about. So we're committed to that long-term vision of data transparency to transform the U.S. government for the better, and we have strong support, as you heard earlier today, from Cliff Slidell of the White House and also of Mick Mulvaney and OMB leadership. White House OMB Director Mick Mulvaney, who's my boss, was a congressman when he supported and helped pass the Data Act, and he continues to strongly support open, electronic, and publicly accessible and accountable data. We continue to work in ways to improve federal data quality while protecting privacy and security and improving the interoperability of data. My first foray into open data was actually in working with our Office of Information Sharing in DHS to actually support the NEAM structure, which you're going to hear about later today. And in that capacity, we actually put together some pretty strict compliance and data standards for both law enforcement and for health at the time, which were universally adopted. And now I'm continuing in the U.S. government to add to that catalog in the following way. We have the largest data catalog in the world on data.gov. Data.gov has cataloged thousands of new data sets and data collections in 2017 with information from 174 federal agencies. And to date, Data.gov has had over 10.4 million page views in 2017 alone. And these metrics can be seen on data.gov/metrics. In addition to that, the federal government developed Project Open Data to develop the metadata schema for data.gov, and that's now in use by many public sector entities. And with that also comes the development of tools that benefit different groups of people and industries and communities. So earlier this morning, you heard how the government of Australia adopted a single open data structure for all regulatory reporting and transforming regulatory information into a single data set government-wide. The U.S. is working towards similar goals in other areas. The Commission on Evidence-Based Policy has just issued a report that uses statistical data to inform how we judge the efficacy and efficiency of our policies and whether or not they're actually achieving the original intent. And using that kind of data can inform how we move forward in changing those policies, in developing new policies, or filling policy gaps. In particular, the Data Act in 2014 sought to create that single data structure for spending information that agencies maintain and report. And the OMB and the Office of the Federal CIO are committed to supporting DAMES. As agencies report their spending information to the Treasury and OMB, they must follow this standard, and only by making that information available in that way can we do any cross-referencing and any kind of analysis that allows us to compare and contrast the agency's performance either within the federal government or with external entities. So OFCIO and the OMB office will be involved in the OMB government-wide data agency reform. So we've received reform proposals from multiple agencies across the federal government. And not surprisingly, there are proposals that have been submitted regarding data sharing and data standards. Everybody recognizes that this is the platform on which we have to build our house. Under the open data policy and the executive order, the Office of the Federal CIO leads the adoption of data standards government-wide and adopting additional data standards that bring information together across agencies to improve management. And as this work continues, there will be new data standards in areas beyond spending, but we commit to making sure that those are integrated with and informed by and led by DAMES. One of the areas where data standards will play a big role in federal government is IT spending and investment, and we have launched an initiative called Technology Business Management, which is actually an open standard that was put in place by a not-for-profit in industry using multiple tech companies and industry companies as their baseline for how we would actually describe IT cost. And the TBM framework includes a taxonomy for understanding IT cost in a consistent way. It would not be surprising to you as to what those elements are: hardware, software, service capability, all of those described in an effective and standard manner. And what we're doing with that initiative is we're taking the conversation out of the realm of, wow, IT costs a lot and we can't really put our finger on exactly how much it costs and where all those costs are located, to we've fixed that problem, we understand what our costs are, we understand what our business cases are, and now we're moving to what's the conversation about how IT adds value to the delivery of the mission. So it provides the common language and the model, but also I wanted to say that there are a number of agencies that are implementing TBM at this time, and since the IT Cost Commission report was released, we've established a TBM community of practice in partnership with the CIO Council and the GSA Office of Government-Wide Programs to bring together the representatives who are actually out there doing this. And we're taking the lessons learned from the people who are implementing it, and we're feeding that back into the community. We established a TBM Executive Steering Committee, which I'm actually chairing later this week. We meet once a month, and we make sure that all those implementations are on track. So one of the things I wanted to talk about next is our ability to understand how we interact with the community that's in the room today. And I'm shortening this a little bit because we seem to be off track in terms of time, but this summer, our OFC office hosted a roundtable on open data for economic growth. And as one example of the types of use cases of open data, a company that actually produced breakfast cereal was timing its coupons and its promotion just on a regular basis every 2 weeks so that they could increase sales. But what they discovered was that during a weather event, such as a snow event, there was actually an uptick in cereal consumption. So they began to time their coupons to be released in conjunction with certain weather events, and they saw a tenfold increase in their sales. So these are the kinds of innovative thought processes that companies are going through to actually engender economic growth by using open data. And that was weather data for a cereal company. So you never know where those dots are going to actually connect, and where you have to make sure that you are cognizant of supplying all the data that you can possibly supply in an open fashion, because you don't know which questions are trying to be answered and how those dots might connect. And on September 8th, only a few weeks ago, our OFCIO office worked with GSA to host a workshop with over 80 participants from industry, academia, and open government organizations to explore emerging technology and open data for a more open government. And at that session, we actually got to talk about some of the technologies that were mentioned this morning. We talked about blockchain, we talked about machine learning, and we talked about open data in general. And once again, those participants were brought together to have an open conversation and generate for the National Action Plan for Open Government, version 4, what might be the areas that we could explore building upon the successes that we've already had. So you will see in upcoming months the release of the National Action Plan, the 4th version, and we continue to be involved in that international community, making sure that we are leading the charge, and particularly through connecting these communities here today with the federal agencies and how they uplift open data. Artificial intelligence was also one of the discussion points that we had at that particular session, and the combination of blockchain and its effect on anonymized ledgers, cybersecurity, and the opportunities that provides, and then artificial intelligence being able to have machines learn over time and do things as fantastic as connecting cancer patients with the appropriate clinical trials, and on and on and on. These are the kinds of examples that we see in the successes that are emerging. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, similar to open government, open data engagements are a priority for OFCIO. And as one example, this past Saturday was the National Day of Civic Hacking. Many of you in this room probably attended. The National Day of Civic Hacking is an annual event where dozens of cities come together across the United States and host local events to solve community challenges. It's an annual event that connects public servants, people, and technology skills, graphic designers, problem solvers, community organizers, to show how the government and the citizenry can work together in the 21st century when we all build together. This year, our office was the Interagency Open Data Community co-lead in a Washington, D.C. event at the Johns Hopkins Sibley Innovation Hub that was focused on federal open data resources, public-private momentum on community challenges, including the following. And you always start with the question that you're trying to answer or the problem you're trying to solve. Suicide prevention innovations, data-driven solutions to the opioid crisis, Lyme disease innovation, and open data for hurricane disaster relief. So all very topical and current topics. We had a co-creation of the 4th National Action Plan for Open Government was also included in that agenda, so any more ideas that were coming out of that discussion in the Civic Hacking event are also going to be included in NAP 4. And these events are critical for bringing the community together to tackle the unique issues that are facing our cities and our nations. Events and conversations, such as the discussion that we're having today, in this industry-driven gathering here for events like this, advance our common goals, and empower us to work smarter together and with all hands on deck. So this is really about agile development, about iterating together, about continuing to fill the gaps and accelerate the successes. My goal in OMB and the OFCIO is to unlock the federal information that is most valuable to you in the private sector and private industry to power these new business models, scientific research, new discoveries, and for civic tech and communities like this group here today, creating new government efficiencies and insights into spending data and things such as the Data Act and other legislation going forward. So for long-term success, we encourage the public to continue playing a large role to help the government make better use of our data and to actually combine data sets with other information and provide value to society. So I thank you for your continued inspiration, for your passion for this cause, for your engagement in the process, because only by having you continue in that capacity will we get where we're wanting to go. Thanks.